Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm back with another Piers Morgan reaction. I just spotted this debate and number one, I was blown away by the title or the first few seconds of the discussion because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I've got some more information on this whole all-black audience at this production. So we'll look into it, but basically Piers is having a debate with Imarn of Black Lives Matter, and they're discussing this theatre production where they are aiming for an all-black audience, and they have politely asked white people basically to not buy tickets. So let's take a look. A theatre in East London has been accused of setting a dangerous precedent after urging white people to stay away from a play so that the audience is free from white gaze. The Theatre Royal Stratford East has warned white visitors against attending the July 5 performance of Tambo Bones, a production which explores 300 years of African American history. Those running the event said they are hosting the one-off blackout event during the play's month-long run in a bid to create a safe, private space for an all-black identifying audience to look at race-related issues. Although organisers said on the theatre's website that no one is excluded, it has been made clear on promotional material that white people are not wanted at the production that night. Yeah, of course, they have to say no one is excluded because it's illegal. It's illegal to exclude people from buying tickets to a theatre based on race. So of course they have to say no one is excluded. But under the radar, they're basically saying, we don't want you. We don't want you coming. A blackout night is the purposeful creation of an environment in which an all-black identifying audience can experience and discuss an event in the performing arts, film and cultural spaces free from the white gaze. An advert for the show said. Black identifying audience, is that to welcome, maybe that's to welcome like mixed people. Bedfordshire Police and Crime Commissioner Festus Akinbusoye, Britain's first black PCC, condemned the event, claiming it set a poor and dangerous precedent. Speaking to the Telegraph, Mr. Akinbusoye strongly urged organisers to cancel the blackout event. Society is richer and stronger when an understanding of each other's cultures and stories is shared and heard, he told the publication. However, I believe the blackout concept runs contrary to this education and enrichment ethos. The Bedfordshire PCC said that he himself is a lover of the theatre, and having recently attended Hamilton, he enjoyed being able to share this with people of all races and cultures. But he said he would not have watched the show, which features a majority black or ethnic minority cast, if it had been a blackout performance. He added, "This also sets a poor, dangerous precedent, in my view, and is not something I would support." While former number 10 race advisor Samuel Kasumu endorsed Mr. Akinbusoye's comments 100%, former politician Sir Trevor Phillips described the blackout as completely lawful. Yeah, it's completely lawful because they're not coming out and saying that no white people are allowed. They're not outrightly saying that. They're not refusing to sell tickets to white people. But at the same time, they're saying they don't want white people there. So I think it's fine for several reasons, he told the Telegraph. There is not a ban on white attendees. It's completely lawful. It is one night out of many, and there are other performances designated for specific audiences. I bet you $1 million there's no night dedicated to white audiences. That would not fly. So let's take a look at this debate.
New trend is sweeping theatre land in the UK and the US. Blackout performances are dedicated to black-only audiences. Those who are not black are asked not to buy tickets. The Theatre Royal Stratford East in London says no one's excluded from attending their new show, Tambo Bones, but promotional material makes clear that white people aren't wanted at the production on the night in question. Says a blackout night is the purposeful creation of an environment in which an all-black identified audience, can experience and discuss an event in performing arts, free from the white gaze. So does this mean I can go if I identify as a black man? There would be some on the woke side who would have, well, they had trouble disagreeing with that, given they believe in limitless self-identity. But it is, more importantly, is it ever okay to exclude audiences based on skin colour? What would happen, for example, if it was the other way around? If this was a white-only audience? Well, I'm joined by the Talk TV contributor Esther Krakow and the Black Lives Matter organiser and activist Imarn Ayton. All right, Imarn, I'm just trying to picture what would happen if I put on a theatrical production in London and it said it was for whites only, or people identifying as white, which is obviously a ludicrous phrase, but you would go nuts. You would say that is blatant racism, segregation, dragged us kicking and screaming back to the dark days of appalling bigotry. You would?
Well, it depends on the context, right?
Right, she's already lost me there. It depends on the context. What? No. As Piers said, you would go nuts. Let's be honest here. It would not last for 5 minutes if someone dared say, we want this to be an all-white audience so we can talk trash about black people. That's basically the impression I got. She knows full well it would not be acceptable and we would not hear the end of it if a theatre production dare say they wanted an all-white audience. Even if they said blacks are welcome, but, you know, we prefer if you didn't come because we don't want to be under the black gaze. She knows she would go nuts.
There's no whites-only audience.
It depends.
No black people allowed. What would you say?
Well, I think you're perfectly right. It would be akin to racists finding more ways to be more racist.
So why is it okay this way around?
Okay, so we have to put it into context. It was 1 out of the 29 shows.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. Let's put it into context, Piers. You want to forget about context. Context is everything. It is 1 out of the 29 shows that was targeted towards black people. And at no point did they say certain people were not excluded. In fact, they actually said it verbatim on their website. No one is excluded, and yet you have found racism.
No. I just read the rest of what they said. It's pretty clear. You are not supposed to go if you're not black.
No, please consider booking other dates.
Right.
They said no one's excluded because it's illegal to do that. This is a theatre, a national theatre. It's illegal to say that white people aren't allowed to attend. So they had to cover themselves and say, oh, but of course, you know, no one's excluded, but we prefer if it was an all-black audience. They said that to cover themselves, but clearly they don't want white people coming.
Right, exactly.
I think the context, you're right, the context is important. I think the issue here is when it's talking about sort of, you know, blackouts, and it's trying to gather an audience of black people that they believe have the same experience.
Right. Exactly.
This doesn't transpose the same way it does in the US and the UK, right? A black person in the UK could be black African, black British, or, you know, black from the Caribbean, right? In the US, the conversation around race is completely different, and that's why it's a problem. Obviously, when you bring this to the UK, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? This is, especially in London, the most multicultural city in the country.
Can you see any?
Yeah, this is very American. I remember when Black Panther came out and people were excited to go to the theatres, and I imagined it was predominantly black people in the theatres. People wore native African clothing from various parts of Africa, and it was like, you know, exciting. But then there were some people who were like, we don't want white people going for the first week or something like that, or for the opening week, we don't want white people there. Something to that effect. So yeah, this is very American, but obviously going to the theatre for Black Panther, the theatre didn't say we don't want, you know, black people there. The theatre itself, or the cinema itself, didn't give any impression that this was supposed to be an all black audience. No, it was just a lot of black people getting together and going to watch it. But of course, you got some people on social media who were saying things like that.
Merit to it?
Of course not. But that's, and I don't even think it makes sense in the American context.
Why is that? If you're talking about safe spaces, because let's just be clear, we're talking about safe spaces.
Because I think
what do you mean safe space? What does that mean?
Okay, so
you wouldn't feel safe if I came along?
No. Again, context. We're talking about a play that was done by black people for black people, targeted for black people.
So?
So
what?
1 out of the... Again, let's just be clear, because you're clearly not getting this message. It is basically akin to the disabled community putting on 29 shows, and 29 shows about disabilities, and then one of those shows is targeted towards the disabled community. That is what it is akin to, and yet you have a problem. Why is that, Piers?
Disability is not based on race, though, is it? A person can have a disability, whether you're black, white, Asian, whatever culture you are. there's people with disabilities. So that's not the same thing.
Genuinely asked yourself
I have
why
a
it's
problem.
different between disabilities
I
or
have-
disabled
I have a
community or
problem.
Jewish, but when it comes to black,
My problem is that
outrage.
you have already conceded that if it was the other way round, and this was a whites-only night of this theatrical performance,
Context.
you would say
Context.
racist. And that's
Context.
my
Safe
problem.
Absolutely.
It's
Safe spaces.
it's the
Black
double
people are
standard.
disproportionately
Can I
affected
just
by
ask
racism, so
why-
therefore it's about safe spaces. This play
I don't
is about
think this
racism,
kind- I don't
so
think-
therefore we should have a safe space for black people as we are disproportionately affected by
patronising
racism.
them?
I don't think
No,
you
it's not.
tackle. I
You
don't.
wouldn't say that to a woman. You wouldn't say that to a
Yes, I
woman if she
would.
was talking about abuse and therefore she wanted and they wanted and she wanted
All right,
a safe
let Esther
space.
respond.
I'm sorry.
You wouldn't say that.
The idea of safe spaces and black people needing safe spaces is
When
extremely
talking about
patronising.
racism. But when talking about racism,
Okay,
Let her
but
finish.
what about
It
Asian? What about
isn't.
Asian
It
people?
isn't.
Do Asian people need safe spaces
when
from
talking,
racism?
when talking
No,
about
do Asian
racism,
people?
when
no, but they,
I'm
oh,
asking
come on,
you a
but we don't
question.
have this.
Oh my gosh, what if there was a play and they wanted an all Asian audience and they said that it was for them to have a safe space to basically to be safe from black people? That would be highly offensive. Or, you know, to be safe from white people, black people. I'm sure people would find that highly offensive. What is this safe space? We're not vulnerable victims out here just in fear every day. Every time we wake up in the morning, in fear of the white man. Well, maybe some people are, and I think that's very sad. But why do we need a safe space to go to the theatre? What is this? And what message does that put out there when we talk about black people needing safe spaces? It makes no sense. It just makes me wonder, you don't believe you belong in the UK, and whoever believes that here in the US, you don't believe you belong here then. If you need a safe space to just exist in your own country, it's sad.
When talking
Let
about,
Esther finish.
No, she just asked me a question, so I'm answering it. When talking about Asian racism, I think they deserve a bit of a safe space. When they're talking about their own experiences,
from black people or from white people?
From all types of people that are going to
All right, let
promote
Esther-
judgment,
Esther.
because it's about.
I'm sorry, if you don't feel safe, then you take precautions individually. You don't need the Asian community or the black community to segregate themselves. You don't.
Being free of judgment.
Esther, let me ask you. Esther, let me
Free
ask
of
you.
white
Hang-
judgment,
Mark,
free of
Mark,
Asian
Mark,
judgment,
let
free
Esther-
of all types.
Let somebody
of
else speak,
judgment.
please.
No, I'm going to.
Or we're going to have a
Problem.
safe space where you get removed so that only I can be heard speaking.
Happily, and I'll say bye to you both.
I will have a one night only. Only
Happily.
Piers.
Happily, I'll say bye to
Only
you both. I'll
Piers.
see you on Saturday. I'll say bye
I'll
to
have,
you.
I'll
and I
have
won't
one
be
night of the
back,
show
no
where
problem.
only I am allowed to speak and you're not allowed to because of your skin colour. How would you like that?
Well, that's called racism.
Exactly.
isn't it?
Exactly my point.
No, it's not. It's
Esther, let me
completely
ask you
different.
this. What would most black friends of yours or family think about this? I mean, in other words, is it something where a lot of black people might go, you know what, actually, I can see some merit to this?
They would see it as an American importation, right?
Does that mean necessarily a bad thing?
I think that it would.
No, it's not.
It would be seen. It would be seen as ridiculous, but ridiculously, particularly American, right? Because black people are not a monolith, which we can all agree on.
Thank
Black people
you.
come from various parts of the world. They have different
But they
cultures.
share similar
This idea
experiences.
that there is a shared black experience,
But they
I think,
share
is
similar
ludicrous.
experiences.
Ludicrous,
But they
other than
do.
the color
They
of our
do.
skin.
No,
But I
they
don't.
do.
But you have
But
to
you just-
accept
you
there are
just-
many connotations you're adding to
But
that.
by your own
I could
testament,
say
you
that.
said
I
that
could
we
say
have
that
shared
as a black
experiences
person, I
by our-
face more racism from Asian and Middle Eastern people, so I should have a safe space from those people.
I have met black people, to my shock, and it took me a long time to be convinced. They told me they had never faced racism. I have met black people who would tell, in my own family, who have told me they have never faced racism, mainly because they grew up in a very multicultural area. Much more, I mean, I grew up in a multicultural area, in a city area, but still, for some reason, their part of town, they said that they had never experienced racism. So, yeah, we don't all have the same experience.
Can you even
That's if you want to
identify
be
them?
specific.
No,
If
but
you want
that's
to be specific, you have the right to
ridiculous.
do
I don't think.
You
Okay,
have
let
the
me
right to do
interrupt.
that if you've been
Let me
abused.
speak.
You
I
have the
don't
right
think
to do
any
that,
form of
Esther.
art should ever be exclusionary on the grounds of skin colour, regardless of who it's targeted to or who it's made by.
We're talking about race
The
equity.
whole point of art is it should be for everybody.
But we're talking about race equity.
For
in this
everybody.
moment.
No.
Context.
I
please.
don't. No, it's not right. It's not racially equal about this.
Piers.
It's racially unequal. You're saying no
Piers.
white people can come. It's
Context.
ridiculous.
What's the play about, Piers?
I've heard your art.
What's the play
It
about?
doesn't matter what it's
Yes,
about.
it does.
It
And
doesn't.
that's your issue. You want to negate context.
No,
and there is no
it doesn't
argument
matter if
from
every-
both of us without context. You know this, and yet you try to negate it.
No, I don't know this.
Here.
No, you
deal
can't.
with the context, and if you can't deal with it, don't come with an argument.
Can't tell.
So the play is about African American history, 300 years. Why can't people of other races be interested in that too?
Deal with the context.
You can't tell me what I'm thinking.
No, exactly. But that's
right?
what you do to me.
Or what my opinion is.
And that's what people like you do to me.
People like me?
Yes.
What do you mean people like me?
Prejudice. Racially prejudiced people like yourself. That's what you do. That's why we need safe spaces.
You're calling me racially prejudiced?
I've done that several times, Piers. Why are you surprised?
Why are you saying that?
Ignorance doesn't actually suit you.
That's ignorant, actually,
No,
what you
no,
just
it's
said.
not. I've just told you.
I'm not.
Racially prejudiced means racist. Look it up in a dictionary. Prejudice is a form of racism. It's under all the lists of things that make up racism. So she's calling him a racist.
Racially prejudiced.
Okay,
and what
so
you just said
what's
is very
prejudice,
offensive.
Piers?
And you
What's
shouldn't be
prejudice,
saying
Piers?
that.
Piers, what's prejudice?
Huh?
What's prejudice?
If you're racially prejudiced, you are a racist.
What's prejudice?
That's what you just called
Have you
me.
been learning?
I'm not accepting that. Sorry.
What's prejudice?
Esther, will you go and watch this?
Swiftly
No,
move
but I'm
on.
No, I don't think you should be calling me a racist.
Swiftly move
It's ridiculous.
on. I've done it several times, and yet you have a problem.
then you're
with the
wrong
third
every time.
I did it last year. You're talking about it
good for
today as
you.
if it's a new surprise.
It's
It's,
a-
not.
it's
I
a-
told you last year you were racially
it's a
prejudiced, and I'm
lazy-
telling you again
it's a
today.
lazy
and yet
thing
you
to
have no
say.
argument.
It's a
That's
lazy
your
thing to
argument.
say.
Lazy thing to say. Well done.
Because I'm
Piers.
not
You're doing
racially
well.
prejudiced.
You're
Never
doing
have
well.
been.
What's racial prejudice, Piers?
It's being a
Answer the
racist.
question.
Yeah,
Answer
it's
the question.
racism.
Judging
And that's
people
what you do.
prejudicially
That's what you
on their
do.
skin colour.
That's what you
Actually,
do.
rather like
That
what
is
this
what
theatrical
you
production
do.
is doing.
That's what you do.
We've got to leave it there. Thank you both very much. I appreciate it.
The difference between last time she called him racist and now is because a lot of people called him racist because he criticised Meghan Markle. And the rule is, if you criticise a black person, I say that with quotation marks, if you criticise a black person, you're racist. Those were the rules back then. But obviously now, we know that people are waking up to Meghan and Harry and their lies. We've seen, obviously, even a couple of days ago, the lies they perpetuate. People are waking up to that now and seeing through their nonsense. So a lot of people who called him racist, just because he didn't believe Meghan Markle and everything she said, and he didn't agree with everything she said and her conduct, a lot of people who called him racist because of that are now eating their words and are backtracking. So that's the difference. But now you're calling him a racist because he doesn't agree with you about a show that excludes people based on race. So yeah, I think that's a shame. I don't think she's going to be invited back to the show. She's been invited so many times. She's a staple part of this show. I enjoy the debates that where Imarn is featured, but unfortunately after this, it's a serious accusation to call somebody a racist. It is, especially in this day and age. People lose their jobs over the accusation alone, even without evidence. So it's a serious accusation. You can't just throw that out there because you're losing an argument. Anyway, so let me know what you think. Interesting and yeah, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy situation. To me, it sounds like segregation when you talk about an all-black audience. We prefer white people not to come. I don't think we should be heading back to those days. I really don't. So share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves and I will see you in the next video, God willing.